Welcome to my new audio about sex. Please listen and relax. You may sit in a comfortable chair, breathe deeply, and listen carefully as you relax. The meaning of sex. Sex has no intrinsic meaning, and almost everyone wishes it did. The desire to give sex meaning is an understandable, important enterprise. The pursuit of that meaning is a common source of conflict for both individuals and society. We discover the meaning of sex each time we have it, meaning that only resides in our experience. The meaning of sex changes, is reinvented each time we participate in it. Most people need sex to have meaning because the alternative is too frightening. Having sex in an existential vacuum, sex without meaning, would require participants to float freely in sexual experience, rather than being snugly anchored in a cognitive framework. That's scary. Sex has a non-linear, open-ended nature, a cacophony of impulses and feelings, its transcendent possibility of taking us away from ourselves. We might not, after all, make it back. Sex is ultimately grounded in the body, right brain, non-linear experience, not a left brain, cognitive one. Of course, sex can be analyzed, evaluated, and so on, but not as a part of the experience. Having sex and understanding sex are two separate activities. Much like eating and understanding nutrition are two separate activities. Trying to understand nutrition and digestion while eating undermines the sensuality and enjoyment offered by the experience of dining. So sex is not limited to intercourse, not even to genital activities. In reality, sex describes a huge range of activities. Many things can be sex, because sex has whatever meaning we experience moment by moment. And sex has an infinite range of meanings, because the scope of activities that can properly be called sexual is so vast. With the perspective that sex has only emergent meaning, we can experience a huge range of sexual feelings and meanings. The fact that sex has no intrinsic meaning is actually its ultimate positive quality. It gives us the opportunity to discover an infinite number of meanings in sex and to use sex as a vehicle for self-exploration. And it gives us the chance to play in the purest sense of the word. So you have to trust sex. So you have to trust your partner. Can she or he handle whatever you create sexually? Can she or he go to new sexual vistas with you as you invent them? Or will you find yourself alone? Will he go further or faster than you? Also leaving you feeling alone. In reality, sex is almost always an experience of oscillation, of partners being alone and then finding each other again and again and again. Can you tolerate being parallel and then coming together, then separating again moments later, trusting that you'll find your way back toward each other? Finally, you have to trust that you are adequate. That is, that your body will respond to whatever challenge sex presents. Is sex meaningless? Yes and no. It is meaningless in the objective or philosophic sense. But for better or worse, it is meaningful on the personal, experiential level. One reason that people have sex is to be periodically renewed, nourished in their experience of whatever kind of meaning they expect. Whatever that meaning involves intimacy, closeness, pleasure, creativity, bodily perfection, or just the promise that life is okay. And because we can't learn to walk without falling a few times, what's more important? Learning how to walk or preventing a few bumps and sprains? So grow, my friend, and learn. Learn about sex, learn about yourself, relax, and enjoy. Honor yourself, your body, and your partners. Be. You have been listening to an audio recording made by Dr. Denisa Legac. Please visit, like or subscribe to my new YouTube channel. I would really appreciate it. If you have any questions, please do send me an email or just comment below, and I will look forward to answer your question. Thank you very much for listening. Yours, Dr. Denisa Legac.